not want to miss this. Ruben Gallego's win in Arizona wasn't just another victory for the Democrats, it was a reminder that common sense still has a place in politics, and when he appeared on The View, the hosts clearly expected him to echo the usual progressive talking points, but instead, he brought a refreshing dose of practicality and logic, so today we're covering what he did differently than all the other Democrats, and you won't believe what he said about the border. As always, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this.
You know, when you're growing up poor and you don't have much of anything, the biggest currency you need is hope. And that's the one thing I had and my family had, and it was instilled, from my mom and from the rest of my big Latino family, which is like, you can do this, right? If you keep your nose clean, work hard, you're going to accomplish this. And every day it was hard. You know, it was hard working those after-school jobs. And I was lucky to have teachers and family that were also very supportive, but it was all worth it. And I thought about it back in the day at the age of 14, 15, that if I work hard, I'm gonna succeed. And if I succeed, my family will succeed.
This is what he started the segment with, by the way. Ruben Gallego might call himself a progressive, but don't expect him to march in lockstep with the usual victimhood mantra that so many on the far left cling to. Instead, he stands out because he puts a strong emphasis on personal responsibility. He doesn't deny that some issues might exist, but he also doesn't let that become an excuse to throw up one's hands and wait for someone else to fix everything. Instead, he encourages people to take control of their lives where they can and work hard to overcome obstacles, and his life is a perfect example of that. He's the son of 2 immigrants and his father was a convicted criminal, but he didn't let that incident define his existence and went on to graduate from Harvard in 2004. He then deployed in Iraq as a Marine in 2005, and according to military.com, quote, his company saw some of the worst fighting of the Iraq War, losing 22 Marines and a Navy corpsman over 8 months. And I thank all of them for their service. When he came back, he became a rising star in Arizona's local politics and was quick to ascend the ladder. He jumped from being the chief of staff of the Phoenix councilman to becoming a lawmaker in Arizona's House, and in 2014 he became a U.S. representative for the state of Arizona. That's an interesting career if you ask me, but you won't be surprised when you hear how he won the bid for becoming a senator in the past elections.
I went everywhere in the state, and I took no population for advantage. You know, we talk about Latino males. The reason I was able to kind of understand what's happening there was because, growing up Latino and working those work sites and working overtime just to help out my family, I understood the frustration I was hearing out in the community, and we were focused right away on the cost of everything. Groceries, rent. Arizona's a big state, and we went to some places that haven't seen anyone even ask for the respect of someone's vote. And we went to a tribe in northern Arizona that we actually had to fly into Utah and drive 2 hours south.
Wow.
And no one had actually come and asked for their vote in decades. And so we did that, and we did it repeatedly, and we did it in an honest and earnest manner where we wanted to earn people's respect. We wanted to know that we may not agree with you 100% of the time, but I will be there to fight for you because I know exactly what you've gone through, and I still feel it in my core every day.
This is the kind of messaging that wins elections. It is the exact opposite of what the Kamala campaign did, where an endless lineup of celebrities endorsed her as if that's what sways voters. They act like a viral video or a well-rehearsed speech from a millionaire actor would resonate with everyday Americans, struggling to make ends meet even. Although Trump won Arizona by 5.5 points, Gallego focused on the basics that led to him outperforming Kamala by 8 points. In another interview, he attributed his win to the connection he has with the voters, saying, quote, what's most important is for you as a candidate to be able to connect with everyday voters and make sure that they understand in you and see in you that you are going to fight for them. Adding, quote, we need to be able to go back to our economic roots where we're literally known and understood as being working families. Ruben also described in depth what voters were telling him while he was on the campaign trail, and I think these are the things that define this year's elections.
It was hard working those after-school jobs, and I was lucky to have teachers and family that were also very supportive, but it was all worth it, and I thought about it back in the day at the age of 14, 15, that if I work hard, I'm gonna succeed. And if I succeed, my family will succeed. And that was like the thing that drove me every day. And then, on the campaign trail, one of the things that I saw that was probably the hardest thing to hear was people saying and feeling like, I'm working so hard and I don't think I'm gonna make it. And then the worst thing to hear after that is, I don't think my kids are actually gonna be better off than I. And for us that are parents, and I'm lucky to have 2 kids, that's the worst thing because we're willing to sacrifice whatever we can for our children, right? And we'll take the personal hits. My mom took the personal hits, working the hard jobs, having to sacrifice a lot, but she knew that her kids would be better off in the future.
Yeah.
And when you're hearing it on the campaign trail, they just don't think it's going to happen. That's when you know that there's something really wrong in what's happening right now.
This is what Kamala's campaign and entire left missed during the past elections at a time when Americans were grappling with skyrocketing living costs, rising crime, and economic uncertainty. Her campaign seemed more focused on vague statements than actionable solution. It's as if her team assumed that simply showing up would be enough to win hearts and minds, but voters wanted substance, not endless preaching. We didn't hear a single thing about how she planned to lower gas prices, fix the border crisis, or address any of the other pressing issues that dominated the national conversation. I've noticed, by the way, you still haven't liked the video or subscribed yet, so what are you waiting for? Gallego also managed to connect with male voters, which is something Kamala failed to do. He was quoted saying, quote, "Growing up working class, there's nothing more hurtful than working hard and then not being able to provide for your family," adding, "And I instinctively knew that's what these men were going through. And I can't keep working, and it's still not making a difference, and that's when I realized it was really kind of a problem." But the border crisis is where he took a stance different than all Democrats, and his take actually surprised the Views panel.
You're the son, as we've mentioned, of Colombian and Mexican immigrants. You served in the armed forces after attending Harvard University to give back to this country. And you've indicated that the Biden administration wasn't meeting the needs of border states. And this weekend, Trump laid out his mass deportation plan on Meet the Press. Do you think Trump will be able to do what he says he's going to do? And what do you think really needs to be done to address the issue at the border?
So from my experience and talking to people in Arizona, you know, the only swing border state, and talking to our border mayors and also talking to, you know, border sheriffs, police, nonprofits, everything else, what they wanted is, you know, control of the border. They don't want to see the chaos of the border. You know, we have a broken immigration system. And I think recognizing that matters.
That's the issue where most of the left loves to bury their head in the sand and pretend that everyone is good, hoping voters won't notice. But guess what? They do. People in border states and even far beyond are feeling the impact of unchecked immigration policy, and they've made their frustration known at the ballot box. You see, when the Democrats ignored this issue, they didn't just alienate conservatives, but also moderates and independents who see the crisis as a real problem requiring immediate action. Gallego took more of a centrist approach here and noted, quote, "We took a very strong and direct approach at border security because we knew that the Latino community was actually also worried about border security." He also expressed readiness to work on finding a common ground with the incoming Trump administration on this issue. I genuinely hope we get more figures like Ruben on the left because he goes back to the roots of what made the Democratic Party so popular in the first place, and it doesn't focus on the woke agenda that the progressive wing is trying to push. I'd love to know your thoughts here, so let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. And by the way, if you want your friends to stay in the loop, please share the video with them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.